Welcome to a really special episode of the Awards Heaven podcast. We've got a really special treat for you all today, and that is a chat with two guys that I really want to hear from today. We have lots to talk about. First of all, welcome to Jack Mahanes. Jack, how you going?
Doing good, doing good. Oscar season is just kicking off. I know almost everyone in our business says it, but it's my favorite season of the year. So, yeah, no, it's exciting. Yeah, just looking forward to discussing this with the both of you. I've known you for about 4 years now. I've known David for a little over a year. Yeah, no, this is gonna be fun.
It is going to be fun. And introducing David LaMan. Welcome to the pod.
Good to be here, Rob. I'm a longtime fan of Gold Derby, longtime fan of yours. I've been watching the Slugfest for years, and yeah, very good to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you both on. I think we have plenty to talk about, and I think we should just launch right in because we're in that sweet spot right now where not a lot of awards groups have chimed in yet. They're about to.
Mhm.
So we're on the precipice. And so everyone's kind of guessing as to what the films and the performances and the crafts that are going to do well at the Oscars. And so far, in the Best Picture race, there seems to be a really good mix of films that most of us consider will probably be in the top 10. So I would love to hear from either or both of you as to what you think are the front runners and perhaps maybe give us a couple of dark horses that maybe some people in this blogosphere of ours are not giving enough attention to. David, you're going first.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you. Well, this is my first podcast debut, so I appreciate going first here. Well, at the moment, I currently see that the front runners are currently one battle is clearly number one. Hamnet, based upon the audience responses and how many has won more festival awards than maybe athletes have won Olympic medals for curling. I think that if I were to pick a third, it might be Marty Supreme based upon the response out of New York and the response out of the LA screenings we've been hearing and how really much of a crowd pleaser it is more than Josh Safdie's previous films that he's made with his brother Benny. It seems like it might be more audience friendly than maybe the things we've seen before, and obviously a lot less challenging maybe than and less divisive than the Smashing Machine, which didn't really fare out well earlier this year. But I would say that probably is likely the third one based upon the craft support it's going to get. It's likely going to get a lot of nominations. I know some people are doubtful about Timothy's win for actor because he is young, but I think based upon the vibes of what we're getting, certainly from the trailers and how it's a very very energy driven guy who's just trying to weasel his way out of any situation he gets himself into. I think that's a very Wolf of Wall Street level type of thing. It could do very well box office wise. I mean, this is a big test for him as a star. And in terms of what's fourth, I think sentimental value. There was a bit of a weird word on social media and on Twitter, or film Twitter is who thinks that it was losing steam throughout early the year, but based upon the reception at TIFF, following the great reception at Cannes, and clearly we got the European Film Award nominations, which very telling considering this is a more international academy, and based on the response from Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest, and Anatomy of a Fall did very well 2 years ago, and so did Emilia Perez. Unfortunately, well, whether you like it or not, yeah, basically, so those did very well, and that did very well in the nominations here. So if people were thinking that sentimental value was losing steam, you might want to put a lid on that. And I would say that is fourth because that has an international cast to it. I think that the love for it, I mean, I've seen it, I loved it. I think that the whole the appeal of it, I think, is just the fact that it is about family, but it's also about filmmaking and how a father reconnecting with his daughters. That's an easy thing that anyone can relate with. And then in terms of what's five, I could probably say between maybe the Frankenstein, only based upon the fact that it's Guillermo del Toro. The reason why I don't think Sinners is like in the top priority as people might think it is for as a front runner is because we've seen before Ryan Coogler, not exactly a huge, huge beloved in the Academy, except for the first Black Panther movie. And I feel like that might play out the same way with here, where it might just be a picture and then text, and then that might be it for it. That's why I'm not thinking it's in top position to win. And so that's kind of like where I would say like the race is heading between like One Battle, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, and then probably Frankenstein. But yeah, that's yeah.
Okay. Jack, what are your thoughts?
Not much disagreement to be honest. I also think One Battle After Another is the current front runner. Obviously, like some things can change between now and like when like we see who does well as some of the early precursors. But one of the reasons why I have One Battle After Another out front for Best Picture is because I think Paul Thomas Anderson at this point is a slam dunk to finally
Yeah.
win that director Oscar. Yeah, and I think that that was especially confirmed for me after I just recently saw Hamnet, which I haven't in second place, and I loved it personally. But I just coming out of it, I just kind of think that and I'm going to give a credit to my friend Matthew, who said that really, honestly, these days, like we're seeing less and less quote unquote traditional Oscar films win Best Picture. And so Hamnet really does kind of, fall into that like, Oscar bait,
Yeah.
category. Not that that's a bad thing at all, but in terms of winning Best Picture, it's probably not problem. I don't see it at the moment, but I still have number two. I have sentimental value in my third spot because yeah, after the European Film Award nominations came out, really honestly, I think that the European Film Awards that's a really good indicator for what we could see in the directing lineup because that branch has become increasingly international. We see a lot of sometimes surprising picks, from that branch, like Pavel Pawlikowski, getting in for Cold War, or another round getting in. Just a couple examples. I have Mario Supreme in fourth. I do think that like when that opens, I think it does seem like it's going to be a real crowd pleaser. Obviously, unfortunately, it's coming out a week after Avatar: Fire and Ash, so I don't know how much money it's going to make, but I have a feeling that like that's one that's going to be a hit both critically and commercially when it opens wide. Um,
Hmm.
my fifth slot, although I may move it down after some of the reviews came in, was Wicked for Good. Because I think that for the most part, given that this year is like not the strongest year for film, but I do think, but I think yeah, I think because of that, Wicked will probably still get the same nomination. Wicked for Good will get the same nominations as the first part did. I had Sinners number six. It's been it's been hanging on since March, just like, for example, Get
Yeah.
Out, hung on
Yeah.
since springtime, and Black Panther did, also a Ryan Coogler film. I think I have, and then the last four I have at the moment, it was just an accident. I have Frankenstein after that, the buzz for that seemed to taken off, and Avatar: Fire and Ash because the crafts will go for it. And then I actually credit David for why I'm putting this last one on my list currently, The Testament of Anne Lee.
Hmm.
So that's what I have. Those are my 10 at the moment.
Well, to
Well,
be fair though, I didn't say necessarily that was a lock for picture. I said it could,
Oh,
but
no, no, no,
no,
no.
it could. It definitely could.
No, no.
Um, yeah.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna say no. I just I'm kind of confused. I was kind of like confused on like what to put in that last slot, but I kind of like, hey, David said that this could go down really well, so I was like, Why not
Why
put that
not?
one in there for
Why
now?
not? It's early days. We can take risks and gambles. And also, I'm seeing the Testament of Anne Lee tonight, so I will know more after tonight whether or not I feel like it's in there. But it's certainly, Mona Fastvold and Daniel Bloomberg's composer and Amanda Seyfried. It definitely has some. There is some justification for why we think that it is definitely a contender. I agree with everything you guys have said. I think Sinners, for me, I'm surprised that it's starting to fall away a little. When Sinners came out, and for the 3 months after it came out, I felt like people were really, really excited about its chances. And of course, as more movies start to surface, obviously it's going to find it harder and harder to keep that frontrunner status, particularly after One Battle After Another came out, and that is absolutely a knockout movie, and rightly should be the frontrunner alongside Hamnet, Sentimental Value, Mighty Supreme. I saw Wicked for Good the other day, and I'm not really a big, huge fan of the Wicked musical. I've seen it a couple of times. My kids are really into it. I'm a little biased, and I can see that it brings a lot of people a lot of joy. But there is this thing going on right now online where I feel like certain people are really happy about shitting all over it, or just trying to. There's like a Schadenfreude about whether or not it's good enough, and it is good. It's a great movie. There are problems with it. It's not perfect, and I agree with you, Jack. And I'm sure David, you're probably on the same page that it will most likely make it into the top 10. We're talking about 10 films here, and this is not the greatest year of all time for film. David, what are your thoughts on Wicked for Good?
Yeah, I'm seeing it tomorrow, like the double feature. Like, I was gonna see it. I was actually planning on seeing it tonight, but I this was scheduled at the same time.
Wow.
But the early screening, I couldn't find a screening that was earlier. But yeah, I mean, based upon the reviews at the moment, it seems like I actually didn't think it was going to be that low, where it was going to be like 70s, like early low 70s on the tomato meter, and like low 60s, but it seems like it might get the same, if not maybe the same or less than amount of nominations that it got previously. I don't think it's going to win anything other than song, possibly. I mean, I do think that the likely song that would win is "The Girl in the Bubble," the Ariana Grande song. But I think that this time Cynthia Erivo is more vulnerable. I think is the one who's, of all the nominations that it came before, it's not getting editing or score again. I think that was probably due to like the dearth of options last year in terms of like what was popular in the field, and also don't understand why the score was nominated in the first place. It's not. It's literally the same music from the stage musical. But the
I
other
never
thing.
understood.
Well, sorry, what?
I never understood that either. Like
Yeah.
it's great. Don't get me wrong, but surely it's very much adapted from the Broadway show. Yeah.
Yeah, and Cynthia Erivo, I think, is a little bit more vulnerable this time too, because Best Actress is much more competitive, especially in a year where there's more options. Whereas I think last year, I think Cynthia more benefited from the fact that there were a lot of other contenders that were likely going to be lone nominees, like Marion Jean-Baptiste and Saoirse Ronan and Nicole Kidman, Pamela Anderson, they were all going to be lone
Angelina
nominees.
Jolie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie. Oh my god, I didn't even remember. I didn't even remember that one.
Nicole,
Yeah,
Nicole, you said Nicole Kidman, right?
Yeah.
right. But Maria did get a nomination for cinematography.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Really good one. Yeah.
forget the Ed Lockman win ASC, which was crazy. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think that those specific three categories, it's not going to get. It could get casting, but it might be filled up by whatever is top priority in the best picture field, or like what has maybe I don't know, maybe like more. I still don't know how that category will work. It didn't make
No,
top five after last year, but I think that those categories of picture, supporting actress, song, production design, costumes, and sound, I think are pretty locked at the moment. And makeup.
yeah. Some of the films that we haven't mentioned yet that are still in the running, I think, are The Secret Agent, No Other Choice, Jay Kelly, Train Dreams. I really loved The House of Dynamite. I'm not one of the people who are upset about the ending of that movie. I thought it was fantastic. And one film in particular that's really stuck with me ever since I watched it about whenever it was Begonia, the Yorgos Lanthimos movie. And I just love that damn movie. I really do. What do either of you think that that is a pretty good shot for the top 10? Because I hope it is.
I think it's one of those that's just kind of on the bubble. I think it'll do fine at the Golden Globes. But I think the big test is going to be, the guilds and BAFTA. I mean, it doesn't seem like, it's generated like the same amount of enthusiasm as, The Favorite or Poor Things. Emma Stone, just won her second Oscar last year. And so, that's the Academy clearly loves her. So, don't be surprised if, she sneaks in and, to get into the top five. So I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's one of those that's just kind of like just on like, the outside of like that bubble to get in.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I saw Begonia. The only thing that's keeping me that may that I'm a little bit, concerned about it getting into picture is because normally we've seen, films that are like fringe contenders at least, if some that like at least leave you moved or give you a emotional feel. And Begonia is not exactly when
Yes.
you come out of it very an emotional feel. And like we saw, I think with
Mhm.
Nickel Boys, that benefited from when it missed PGA, that helped get into, the top 10. And I'm Still Here is very emotional, that benefited like
Mhm.
being a fringe contender. And normally when you're a fringe contender, you need to at least be something that moves people rather than maybe something that alienates people, like, that, like the death of planet Earth or everyone just going completely unconscious, and I think that maybe might be a hurdle for the Academy to, get in, because I think that the reason why Favorite and Poor Things did so well, not only because they were craft contenders, was because that they did have more hopeful feelings at the end from their lead female characters, whereas this one is sort of more of like, you know, it's genre level Yorgos, but it's more like, yeah, the world is screwed and maybe we deserve it, but does everybody else maybe like who hasn't done anything wrong deserved what happened to them? That's just what I worry about. Is I feel like it may is stronger to get Emma Stone or Jesse Plemons in, or maybe screenplay, but picture I think might be a huge climb. I mean, it could get in at BAFTA based upon like how we saw the European awards react to it, but I still think, in order to get in, it's gonna like it would need people that really liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just picking up back on it, passion is key. And, it just doesn't seem right now that Begonia has the passion that, Yorgos's, last two major Oscar vehicles had. And those films like also just dominated, with nominations in a very, very big way. So it just doesn't seem like Begonia is gonna, do the same thing. So I'm really at the moment I'm kind of looking at like, maybe Emma Stone gets in, maybe the screenplay gets in. Probably not Jesse Plemons, to be honest. But yeah, I really those are the two that I think it could get, but I'm actually not predicting that to happen at the moment.
There you go. I love the nihilist ending of that movie, by the way, but I feel like it's not going to be as off the radar as Kinds of Kindness, but it won't necessarily be as on the radar as The Favorite or Poor Things. But that's probably a good place to stop. I want to move on now to the Actor Awards. The Screen Actors Guild decided to rename their over 25-year award ceremony to from the SAG Awards to the Actor Awards. Now, my problem is this, and then I'd love to hear from you both. My problem is this: for anybody who has an Australian or a British accent, it's the Actor Awards, and that is too similar to the Australian Academy Awards, which are also called the ACTA A Awards. That's too confusing. Okay, stop it. Let's go back to the SAG Awards. It's called the SAG Awards. We like the SAG Awards. It does not need to change the ACTA Awards, but this is a first world problem. I get it, but I don't know if I'm really buying this change, and maybe we just need to get used to it. David, what do you think?
Well, the thing is, sorry, of course, to be the Tony Ruiz of the group, but I fucking hate this.
Okay.
I don't understand the need to change the award. First of all, like to Joe Beth Williams, who is the chairman of the committee who made and the board of directors that made this choice, like you don't get to claim that you're trying to change the name of an award show because like you're trying to like bring in like new viewership because you're now on Netflix. Like what viewership do you think that this is going to bring in when you don't know who's voting on the awards organization at all, when it's not in the name? And also, so like the thing is, I understand that they've always called the SAG Award statuette like the actor award because it is shaped like an actor and it's in the mold of like a naked actor like showing the two faces of the masks of happy and sad, basically. But the thing is, to then call it like the actor awards just because like we're now because we're on Netflix and we're a bigger award show and we're like on a more global platform, like it just made sense, right? I mean, did it? Because I don't understand why it made sense to do this, because what awards that aren't being given throughout award season aren't actor awards? So that's the number one thing that's confusing. Yeah. And secondly, there actually is already an organization that's called Actor Awards, but they're given to for working actors by a lesser regional organization. So like this is like going to be like such an SEO like Google search engine nightmare that really is not helpful when you're basically carrying through and it's a disservice to the union, for a union that's been around for 70 some odd years. And like the thing is, like, I'm surprised that like people like even the president, Sean Astin, who is one of the smartest people in the room, who I've met before, and even in his speech, when he gave his speech for the cast of The Lord of the Rings many years ago, he spoke about how his parents were union president. One of his parents was a union president, and how they wanted to like be able to speak up for other unions, so that way it goes beyond an award show, so that way they're respected. And I don't think that this gives the respect that at all to the Screen Actors Guild at all. I think it's completely like it's very disrespectful to those who work in the union, who belong to it, and it's also so disrespectful to the people who don't know about this award show in general, like for not having it in the name by basically just calling it the actors, because it's not all actors that aren't in the union voting on this award. Yeah. It's only actors that belong to the union. And it's weird because I think that there's been like, maybe the other reason why they renamed it is also because AFTRA has been like with them in the group for so long since the merger in 2013. So it basically, they're not very happy that they're voting in this union, but it's also named on like somebody else's union and not maybe the SAG-AFTRA awards. But to basically say that they're changing it because they want to make it more an inclusive, or at least more like a more known and like accessible, like to give what the award is for audiences, to know what the award is for global and domestic audiences. To say that, to make that excuse, I can understand maybe the dispute between the SAG and AFTRA if that's why they're changing it, but to basically pass it off and just say that we're just doing this to get like more viewers or to at least educate viewers on like what it is, that is not a sexy look for a name change. And this is what also sucks about this too. This is happening industry wide, which means for those of us who belong in the union, well, I know I don't like I do. I don't know if you guys do, but we now have to, or at least some people who work for, marketing departments now have to call it this and refer to it as such. Like, and now I know that like some people on Twitter were saying, like Brian Rowe were saying like, oh, like I'm just gonna call it the SAG Award still, like, like I call Twitter X, or I call X Twitter now. But sometimes we don't have like the authority or at least permission to be able to do that. And they actually in the press release said, I think it'll just take time for people to adjust to the change. Like, will it take time to adjust? Because I think it would just be better if you just put it back to the name it was.
Well, Jack, are you on the same page or do you love it?
Well, David, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I was wondering how you really feel about this. Very passionate.
Yeah, no, like I pretty much echo most what David said. I mean, really, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, this decision just really seems pointless. Yeah, I really don't see like what the point of renaming the award show. I just don't see what the point is. And
Yeah.
just the other thing, the fact that like it's not just SAG actors voting, it's AFTRA. It's really not the actor awards. Like if it was just actors voting on the prize, then maybe it's like okay, a slight rebranding. I don't get it, but like at least it's not a terrible rebranding. This just feels absolutely pointless. And
Mhm.
so it's just I just was kind of like why when I read that news. And yeah, no, I mean I probably will follow Brian Rose's lead and just keep calling it SAG. Um, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, I mostly, I really don't have, much to add aside from, what David said.
Look, the bottom line is this. With my accent, I'm not going to be able to call it the actor awards, okay? It's very simple. I'm just going to have to keep saying SAG unless I change my accent, and that's not going to happen. So, so this is the question that I really want to know the answer to, because we've all seen some films so far this year. There's a lot probably that we haven't seen yet because you can't watch everything. We have lives, we have to sleep, we have to eat. Jack, what is your favorite film of this year so far? And don't worry, because by the end of the year we will revisit this. We'll circle back and we'll see if you've changed. But for now, what's your favorite film of the year so far?
It's one battle after another. It really is. I'm a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan, and he's just someone who has really never made a bad movie that I've seen. Like maybe like some movies are maybe not as good as others, at least from what the ones I've watched. And I've seen a good amount of his filmography, but this one just really felt like the most ambitious, directorial feat of his. Really, honestly, it just really seems like just the most ambitious project he's taken on. It's also very timely, to what's happening today, in America with, ICE raids and, authoritarian federal government, to put it mildly.
Yeah,
Um, so
just
yeah,
mild.
I think, but also just everyone in the cast was excellent, no matter how big or how small their parts are. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, this may be the best role he's done, maybe even since Wolf of Wall Street, to be honest.
So good.
Like, and honestly, I even would not rule out him winning a bookend Oscar for this. I would
Yeah.
not put that out of the put that out of the question. I mean, and Sean Penn, like that role, like I mean, Sean Penn's always played, characters over the years that make you uncomfortable. This is by far the most uncomfortable character I've ever seen him play, and he nails it. And then, of course, Tiana Taylor, Chase Infinity, Regina Hall, Benicio del Toro. I mean, really, honestly, everyone was excellent. This is one of those movies that just worked on every level for me in terms of how great the filmmaking is, but also it's just a really entertaining film from beginning to end. And like just the long runtime just ran by like that.
Yeah, I agree. I love that movie. And for me, like the highlight is Tiana Taylor. Like, geez, wow, what a performance. My God, I missed her when, when her role pretty much dries up halfway through the movie. Oh man, she's amazing. All right, David, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, we're all probably going to be having the same favorite film at the end of the year because it is one battle for me. I mean, like the thing is, Paul Thomas Anderson, I've always liked. I actually think, and this is somebody who like who used to not like his later movies as much as I've gotten older now. When I was younger, I used to not like the Master or Inherent Vice. Then as I got older and I sort of more like understood like sort of his process and his style, I then ended up loving it right after that. And like, so the thing is, I mean, if he in terms of like movies of his that I hadn't been like as like enthusiastic about, it would maybe be Punch Drunk Love or Heart Aid, only because I just don't. I only because I just felt like there wasn't going on much in the story wise, and I like at least stories to at least challenge you a little bit more. But yeah, this one just really like from the very first frame of it, from the Johnny Greenwood piano tune and Tiana Taylor just walking down the highway, I was like, this is just like one of the defining films of our time. And it what I really loved about it most was that like PTA uses all of these sensibilities that he's done from filmmakers that he's idolized, like Robert Altman and Jonathan Demme, and he takes what we love about those filmmakers in like The Silence of the Lambs or like the needle drops from that, or like the stuff from Robert Altman in Nashville, or even some of his lesser films like Popeye, and he like uses them as like brilliant echoes of things to like make it like so invigorating and so hilarious. And he takes all the serious things about the world and then just really makes us allowed to be able to laugh at it based upon our current society and our current administration. And I think that like one of the things that I truly admire about what he does, especially, is, one of the things about Leo as an actor is that, and he's kind of like now, like he's always been able to do this, and we now kind of take, it for granted, like how much he's able to just, draw us in through just a relatable presence. And there's a scene specifically, like through like the fact that he has an interracial daughter and having to struggle to raise her. And it's the scene where he's just riding with Benicio del Toro and he still hasn't been able to figure out how to do her hair. And that's like just such a relatable thing for anyone, that whether if you like are maybe against somebody's politics or not, anybody could relate with this guy. And anybody, like, he's like the biggest, most incompetent member of the group, and yet he is the one person who always wants to do the right thing and not take a human life. That's like the greatest thing about him. And I think that also Benicio del Toro, like he's just like such a hilarious presence. He only has 13 minutes in the movie, like Matthew Stewart timed this, and yet it feels like an hour, mostly because he's just so assured and so confident. And it's kind of like, he's like one of those Jonathan Demme characters who just came straight out of one of his old movies, who just always knew how to like, assure the lead characters, but then keep the audience as well entertained, and just responding to like the most literal things that the characters are going through when he responds and says 8:15 and he doesn't know that he's actually talking to the other person on the phone and about what time it is. Yeah, and I mean I just watched it in the theater like literally just the other night in another screening, and it really, really holds up. And it I think it's just the fact that like PTA, like I kind of had hopes for this movie ever since I heard about it, when they said that there were that it's his most he broadened the story. And I kind of knew that this would be a very accessible film based upon it, because it's, it's just about a father trying to reconnect with his daughter. And no matter like what you like may think of the story, anybody can relate with that. Like anybody like can relate with it. Anybody can laugh and just have a good time and just root for these people to get back to each other. And yeah, Chase Infinity is such a revelation. And yeah, and if you haven't seen any of her other work, check out Presumed Innocent with Jake Gyllenhaal, because she's great in that too, because he really has a great career ahead of her.
Yeah, she's great in that. I agree with everything that you guys have said. I love the movie too, and it will definitely be in my top 10, probably top five, probably top two. But I'm gonna also borrow from Tony Ruiz. I'm fucking old, right? And so I'm at the point of my life now where I judge films about just purely how much I enjoy them and how many times I want to rewatch them. I'm a real sci-fi nerd, and so back in the day, I would generally judge films about, the prestige value and the cinematography and the craft and all that. And I take it all into consideration and be like, hey, this is my top film of the year. These days, yes, that's all still very important, but these days it's all about what do I just love in my heart of hearts that I just cannot deny that I want to watch again and again and again and again. And for this time, this year, so far, that is Predator Badlands. And I love that movie so much because I'm a humongous sci-fi nerd and I just had a ball with that movie, and I can't wait to watch it again and again and again. It's just so brilliant, and it's not going to be taken seriously. I get it by a lot of people in the industry who are voting, but I really honestly believe that it should at least make the VFX Bake Off. Because the visual effects in that movie are incredible. Fingers crossed, man. And the performances are so good. But the motion capture performance by Demetrius is incredible, and of course, Elle Fanning is great as the android Thea. The music, I listen to that soundtrack constantly these days. It's the best score of the year, I think. Yeah, so that's my number one for now. Of course, things will change as we see more and more and more. As I said before, I really, really loved Begonia. I loved everything about that movie. I loved the ending. I loved the themes. I loved the production design, everything. So there's going to be we will have to circle back and we will go through our top tens at the end of this year because I feel like it'll be a really interesting discussion and we'll be able to maybe pinpoint certain films that a lot of people maybe haven't given a chance to yet. So, on that note, I want to thank you both so much for joining me today. This has been a real pleasure getting to know you both and also just revisiting some of these Best Picture contenders. Let's do it again soon. Everybody, make sure you stick with us at Awards Heaven because there's plenty more to come. And of course, don't forget to make your predictions over at Gold Derby as well because you've got to keep those predictions up because you want to be able to win the pool. You want to have bragging rights. You're not going to win a prize. No one's going to send you a check, but that's okay because you'll have bragging rights. All right, everybody, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.